we want to win the relationship from day one. I think every founder should know how to do more with less. You want to hire maniacs on the bleeding edge of intellectual curiosity.
So the company of misfits, the PayPal mafia,
100%.
That can take over governments. Whether it's good or not, we'll see. Cyrus of Haven, welcome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
I want to get to fun stuff about, the business that you're building and what caused you to be, kind of in the form factor of a startup that you're in. But let's start with the basics so that everyone has the same context. What's the 3 to 15 sentence version of what Haven is today?
Yeah, so Haven's a horizontal tax accounting, finance firm and platform for growing businesses, doing, as my co-founder says, all the things that no business owner wants to do. Everything from your books to your taxes to your tax credits. We have a sales tax product, which is in beta, but think like a horizontal layer similar to Rippling, but on the accounting and tax side.
One of the things I want to kind of zoom out, and then we'll zoom back into the product and the business today. But you said there, the business owners don't want to do. And what I find interesting, having been a 2-time founder and, being immersed in the tech and startup ecosystem and knowing founders, other than venture capitalists, I probably talk to more founders than most, and you too. This notion of like what the founder doesn't want to do on the accounting side is really interesting because it turns out most successful entrepreneurs, at least from a bird's eye view, don't come from the perspective of finance. They don't come from accounting. They're not a spreadsheet maker then turning a spreadsheet into a business. It's usually the opposite. They're a product builder or they're a designer, they're a subject matter expert, they're a scientist and academic who then builds a business and then builds an apparatus around them that eventually does the accounting and finance portion. I'm curious, from that perspective, who do you think you serve? Who do you think, kind of competitors serve, et cetera? Is it the founder who doesn't want to do this thing until a certain point? Or do you view yourself as building for the eventual CFO? And obviously, for a startup, over time, that might change. But I ask this question not just literally, but also philosophically as a founder when you want to approach this. I assume you have to kind of make a choice really early on of like, hey, we want to be this for an early stage team and this founder versus we want to be the scaled version of finance, and we're going to build a tech platform over time that will, be the tech platform not just for a startup with 15 people, but a big company with 5,000 people.
So our platform and business has been built for scale from day one, but we built the business in a manner where we are here to serve founders, first and foremost. Why? Because we want to win the relationship from day one so that we don't get into a situation where coming into the equation where you have a messy accounting situation, messy tax situation, you have someone who's neglected it and it hasn't been top of mind or done correctly, because that creates a lot of friction for us to come in later on and opportunity cost for our team, because that's just not good financial hygiene. And getting in early enables us to set the foundation from day one and grow and scale with them forever. But more broadly, every founder, especially like venture-backed ones, have a finite amount of time to build and execute on what they are trying to do. And they need to focus all of their effort on product and growth. And everyone knows that. And having a trusted partner to handle this area of the back office is something that I don't think has existed to date for many, many reasons. But my personal belief is it's all tied to poor customer experience. And that is where we maniacally focus.
So it's interesting. There are a couple of things there that, as a founder myself, it's hard for me even to feel as a early stage founder, the reward of the good financial hygiene. Now, there's the obvious version of the reward, which is, to your point, there's a finite amount of runway that a startup has. And so if they can make extended use of that runway, then obviously, that can feel rewarding. But financial hygiene doesn't feel as visceral, let's say, as other things. And so as a founder, if you're like, oh, today I want to focus on my books versus today I'm going to run an experiment with my product, I'd say founders 9.5, whether it's right or wrong, 9.5 times out of 10 will pick the experiment.
Totally.
Do you hypothesize against that? Do you have a method of which you convince people, hey, actually, you should think about this differently? Or is there some sort of theory of the world you have for those founders who, like me, it's funny, I've used a competitor, and we can name them or not, but I've turned off of it, not because they did a poor job, but because the idea of spending time on my books as an early stage founder fighting existential crises is like, look, if I was at some scale, someone would be handling this. But for now, I'm going to do this poorly, and every year I'll deal with it.
Yeah. So at some point in time, every founder needs financial clarity. When it comes time to fundraise, when it comes time to do any sort of like strategic business moves. And you need a team or a partner who has the ability to jump onto that situation when it pops up for you. And you want someone who's just going to handle it for you on autopilot. And most firms aren't equipped to be able to jump when a company says jump. And
spiky moments.
And when...
Let's use, for example, fundraising, tax season, maybe a legal issue, hiring, so high budgeting.
Legal issue, yeah.
What are the spiky moments?
Growth experiments, how much capital you have to allocate to...
Almost like internal investment, where you need to allocate a large amount.
Yep.
Anything probably that's capital intensive with like a hardware company, let's say, too.
Totally.
AI investment probably really expensive for folks right
100%.
now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so most firms don't want and don't love, I should say, to be operating at startup speed. But if you're working with those types of companies, you have to be prepared to do that. And so when one of our founders reaches out to us and we know they're fundraising, we prioritize the hell out of that to make sure that we're there for them when they need it. And so basically building a firm that's catered to founders from day one enables us to foster and build exceptional relationships to scale with them for hopefully eternity. And I think that in the long run, while founders don't really care about financial clarity on an ongoing cadence, having someone who's been there for them in those critical moments means the world. My dad told me something about like what Disney does when you go to like one of their parks. And there's something called magic moments, which they try to foster for everyone who comes to like one of their theme parks. When you go on a vacation, you don't remember the whole vacation. You remember those little special serendipitous things. And those inflection points for a company, when you have a partner who's there for you, that's what they remember. And so that's how we try to differentiate ourselves in, of course, many other ways, but that is like one of the really, really core ways.
It's interesting because obviously a lot of the software solutions or the other vendors in this space try to talk about, hey, here's how we help you maintain this throughout the year. Yeah. But to your point, you're saying, okay, that's table stakes. There's something more important here that a founder is going to want. Let's zoom out in an interesting way. If one reads your Twitter, they're going to get a sense of something that I got a sense of when I was kind of scrolling through, which is it feels like you serve mostly right now venture-backed founders and startups. But you tweet a lot about encouraging people to be bootstrapped. Let's get controversial for a second here. Let me start with this view of like, you're obviously serving a lot of these founders. They're your customer. The venture landscape should serve some amount of businesses. But obviously, you getting a peek into finance in a certain way too on your end and across businesses and points of view. When did you decide that more businesses should be bootstrapped than not? What was your crucible moment of ventures overrated? This is a 2024 conclusion that a lot of people are coming to. But
yeah, I think every founder should know how to do more with less. And venture money, to some extent, if you're good at fundraising, grows on trees. You can go get money from anyone. And if you don't have a foundation as a founder or a knowledge of how important every dollar is and how to stretch every dollar, you're going to continue going back to that tree to raise more money. And I think in the long run, you basically don't learn how to do the hard things, which is doing more with less. I personally bootstrapped Haven for about 6 to 8 months. Why? Because I wanted to, one, validate our thesis around our approach and how we're building the company. And I think that I've been a part of a few venture-backed companies in my career. And one of them in particular, the founders knew, and we all knew how to do more with less and not spend the money that we raised. And they now plan to never raise money again. Meow. They're an exceptional team. Yeah. And those skills that we learned and the ethos that we had is something that's applicable to every single business to some extent. Certain businesses are very capital intensive, right? Like OpenAI, they have to go raise money to train their models and buy chips and whatnot. But I think that the majority of companies should, whether they're going to raise money or not, try to learn how to do more with less. And I think bootstrapping for some period of time teaches you that, right?
You did have the advantage of building a business in Haven where you could charge customers early. For agents who had a similar advantage, we could charge customers early. I guess for a lot of businesses where they can't, that's the fundamental notion. Did you know that you wanted to build something where revenue can be a part of day one when you went out? Actually, let's go back to the founding moment for a second before we answer those questions. So what was the moment that you knew you wanted to start Haven specifically?
Yeah, so I was the first business hire at Meow. Was in 2017.
Let's describe Meow.
So Meow is like a fintech bank similar to Mercury/Brex.
Right, and so the main innovation, I believe,
it's Costco for financial services. So they offer more yield on their products than anyone else at better prices.
Right. So if I've raised $10 million, I want to park it somewhere. I should park it at Meow because I'm going to get a good rate on my savings account.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was there for a year. We were originally a crypto company, went through the crypto ups and downs of 2022, takes a few years off your life, but had a lot of fun.
Fortunately, we're going to head back into that, it feels like. But
then we ultimately pivoted to becoming like a traditional finance platform. And interest rates were going up and we just crushed it. January of 2023 hit. I was 25. Was like, definitely burnt out from all the ups and downs of crypto and being in an industry that had been like rampant with fraud, and then like making a pivot and like really putting the pedal to the metal in the pivot and like building a great company. And we were on a great spot by the time like I left. And I was always going to build my own company. I built my own company from my dorm in college. My dad worked in private equity for 30 years. He quit his job when I was like 12. I like watched him build all of his companies, helped him incubate one of them. So it was only like a matter of time. And so quit my job, laid on the couch for about a month, got fat. I then was like, all right, let's go. And I knew I wanted to build something in fintech, knew I wanted to build something for founders in no particular order, and just set out to chat with literally as many founders as I possibly could.
Sorry, what was it about? Because you had been doing that at Meow.
Mm-hmm.
You were also early at Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
So the founder audience wasn't new to you. And so there's something about them that when you decided to go survey them, you already liked them a little bit, or there was something about them that you were fascinated by, especially from a finance perspective. What do you think caused you? Because you could have in that moment experimented with a variety of products, and fintech products can approach a variety of audiences. What was it about founders in particular before you then learned about their problem, but made you want to go, that's who I want to serve, regardless of what I build?
Yeah, so it probably goes back to everything with my dad. So growing up and like the years I was like actually thinking about things, I watched him go through building like a variety of different companies. And I used to be a half decent baseball player at one point in time. Him and I traveled the country figuring out how do I go from throwing like 90 miles an hour to 100. I never got there, but he's now turned that into a business. And it was a byproduct of all the learnings that we had.
Like a baseball coaching business?
It's like they do like biomechanics.
Cool.
So it's like
they're biggest baseball fans. So
okay, cool. So they analyze like your body and like the deficiencies around like your throwing motion and figure out like what muscle groups to like strengthen.
Very cool.
And so I was always going to build my own company. And why like founders specifically? Because they're trying to change the world and they're trying to chart new frontiers. And that just fires me up. I just love it. There's no other way to describe it. And so basically set out to chat with as many of them as I possibly could, ideating broadly underneath like the financial services bucket. And the first few I chatted with were obviously friends. And the R&D credit came up in conversation. They got all excited.
Let's, for the crowd, this is one of your employers, I feel like, popularizes within tech, Main Street. But the R&D credit is, startups are spending a lot in salaries and experiments, research development, and there are tax credits available to them, but most founders are not familiar with it. So unless their firm during tax season brings it up, they don't realize they can get 10,000, 50,000, many hundreds of thousands if you're a big enough company in tax credits in that moment. So that came up. Because people said, hey, that was what was useful, is useful. I'm looking for more of that. Or tax is interesting.
They just never heard of it.
Right.
And so
even after Main Street and others popularized it.
Even after Main Street, yeah. And because there's a new generation of startups coming like every few years, right? And like
founders, to your point, it's like the generation of founders is not remembering what the last generation has learned.
Exactly. And these guys were like in awe. And they're like, dude, can you help us with it? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I guess, sure. It was like $50K on the table. I was ideating, trying to figure out what I wanted to build. And so I helped them with those. And spun up a C Corp, got to like $50K in revenue overnight. But I was like, all right, this is like not the company that I want to build. So I basically like left it. And then I just kept talking to founders. And I'd say close to 85, 90% or something told me how much they didn't like their CPA, didn't like their accountant, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just did a huge deep dive like into the space. And from those conversations and from the learnings that I had, I developed this like core thesis, which is that financial services more broadly, specifically in fintech, don't always remember how important the service component of a business is. And when I say service, I mean CX, like the customer experience. And I was like, what happened to like all these players before me, right? Like Pilot and Bench and De Niro and a few others. And in my personal opinion, I believe that they tried to like truly productize the service and abstract away the people. But
for the sake of cost of goods, probably they wanted to reduce their cost of service.
Exactly, yeah. But as I mentioned previously, there's those spiky moments for founders.
Right.
And that doesn't work because in those moments, you need someone to answer your questions, get you what you need. And a founder doesn't want to go and run through some like platform or go into QuickBooks or whatever and try to figure out like what's going on. In like close to like August of 2023, a few of the R&D credit clients that I had were complaining to me about their accounts. And they asked if I could do books and taxes. And serendipitously, we also got asked to do that when I was at Main Street. They didn't do it for their own reasons, is what it is. But in August of 2023, I was just like I'm going to go build like a modern day PwC, but I'm going to take like a different approach than everyone else prior to me, which is I'm not going to build some fancy product and then try to like get a bunch of customers to use it. I'm going to do the hard thing first, which is like the service. I'm going to serve these businesses, do their books and taxes and credits and all of that. And why? Because we can then identify what areas of that value chain can be automated. What are the mundane, repetitive, laborious things that we can bring software into the equation to automate or bring AI into the equation to automate? And that's exactly what we did. Fast forward to today, we've got north of 250 customers, close to $3 million in revenue, fully profitable. We raised $1.25 million. We've got, I want to say north of 1.3 or something in the bank. And yeah, we want to be the first accounting and tax firm on Mars.
First accounting tax firm on Mars. So a couple of things there. First, there's this notion of being a tech-enabled service that I relate to with free agency. How it's not representation for tech talent is mostly people with technology backing the people who then continue to serve the customer. I assume that's a lot of what you're building in software that actually supports, to your point, the CX, the finance people in your organization who then are the ones interfacing with your customer. You have some competitors that I think are approaching this at least with a similar mission to you. So I'll mention the one that we've used in the past, Flowfi is one. There's like two others that I'm forgetting the names of.
Zenny,
okay. And then Runway?
Siki's company is like a FP&A platform.
Got it, okay. So is there one more that I'm forgetting?
Probably.
Yeah, there are a few who I feel like have a similar mission, whether or not they're going to succeed in the same ways.
Fondo, maybe.
Okay. Man, startups have such weird names. So talk about the motion of building a tech-enabled service in this way, because one of the challenges compared to building a product is you are then going out and you're competing with your competitors, right? Because all of you are going to kind of say the same thing, whether or not it's true when someone buys your service. B, you're competing with their CPA, so you're competing with a legacy business as well. C, you're shifting mindset, but you're servicing them with something that they need today, right? So you have to like be very practical about, I know what product I need to serve you tomorrow to be able to continue to have your business. How do you view that versus the version of any of these companies or you that would have gone product first? What trade-off are you making every day in terms of saying, hey, for my business, here's what we need to automate, here's what we're finding, and I will invest in product here, or I'll invest in, back-end software here, versus, I'm just meeting customers and I'm going to become the firm on Mars by just out competing everybody on sales, go to market, customer satisfaction. Because I think for a lot of tech-enabled businesses, the accidentally poisonous honey can be how attractive it becomes to just get more customers and compete almost not on a legacy basis, but by building the product that already exists slightly better.
So while Haven's an accounting and tax related business, we are really a customer experience platform. What does that mean? That means that software is a commodity. All the technology that can be built to automate things like tax is already out there, right? Like logic-based intake forms from like TurboTax and whatnot that you can go and fill out, and then like OCR financial documents to like then populate tax forms. The most important part of our business is world-class customer experience. The way that we do that is basically being a customer experience platform. So a lot of the tech we've built, of course, we have like a ton of stuff under the hood to like automate accounting and tax and all that good stuff, but is predicated around how do we make our customers' experience the best in the world. And so every client with us is a dedicated Slack channel, nothing novel. But then we've built a proprietary bot on top of Slack, which is in every single channel. You can't talk to it, but at some point you will be able to, that pings our team every 15 minutes if we haven't responded to a client, tracks our response times. And it doesn't just ping everyone individually, it pings the entire company and lets the whole company know that this customer has not been responded to. And that is a psychological reinforcement mechanism for our team to ensure that we are maniacally focused on the customer. And there's so many other things as a part of the value chain around CX that we're building, which will enable us to provide a world-class experience for businesses across the back office. Because back office software isn't some novel proprietary thing. The novelty or the proprietary component of our business, in my personal opinion, is the world-class experience that we're able to provide using software, using AI. And there's companies like Sierra AI, who is like one of our customers. They're building LLMs for like customer experience. We will basically never share that software with like other companies because it's our own internal special sauce, but we're effectively building something like that. Like
using it internally to provide the service. Yeah. So then, when you think about product expansion, there's obviously two ways a startup like that can go. You can continue to be kind of accounting and tax back office. You can expand in the back office and own other areas like payroll or whatever else. You could decide, hey, actually building this great customer service orientation means we can build anything that's kind of facing of a business or a startup. How do you decide how vertical to remain? If the main innovation, because what I'm hearing is basically, hey, actually the innovation has nothing to do with the finance and tax piece of things, has everything to do with the notion of CX, the customer experience. So you could go pretty wide if you wanted to.
Yeah, definitely could. We want to be like one of the first businesses on Mars. Like that is like the short answer. I don't know what we'll do in the future in terms of like expansion around like other product lines, but I'm excited to see what.
So will people who see you as being more of that accounting and tax be surprised in 2-3 years as to what you look like, or will it not be that surprising and it's more just finding more tendrils?
So distribution is the greatest mode of our time. I personally have always believed that. I think the majority of software is commoditized to some level. The majority of products and offerings and services are commoditized to some level. And a business's ability to capture market share is one of the most important things, especially if you can do it organically. And I think that in the future, if we launch other offerings, I don't think our clients will be surprised. I think they'll be delighted because of the level of CX that we provide.
But essentially what you're saying is you're using tax and accounting as a wedge.
I wouldn't say we're using it as a wedge. I'd say it's a massive opportunity, which has basically been a space, which is, I kind of like call it like the graveyard of empires, where everyone has like failed and not like reached like their maximum potential. But I do think that our approach is applicable to many areas of the back office.
How much did you, because you've been at a bunch of companies that have dealt in this space, so you had some advantage already knowing, how some of it worked, but how much do you rely on either for hiring purposes or, people you surround yourself with, subject matter experts, versus, becoming subject matter experts yourselves internally on all of this stuff, right? Because there's the notion of how many people in your customer service team come from the industry and you're just giving them different tools and a different customer service orientation. Are you building people into becoming your new version of a CPA, whatever it might be? How do you think about learning, borrowing, stealing from industry versus building your own?
So I'm always in the camp of build versus buy, 100%. But when it comes to hiring people, I don't believe in hiring for a specific role, right? Whether it's like sales or growth or like engineering versus product or front end, back end, whatever. I just hire divas. Eric Schmidt, like the former CEO of Google, talks about this. Like, you want to hire maniacs who are on the bleeding edge of intellectual curiosity and motivation around like doing something special. If you find great people and you have extreme talent density, you can conquer and build anything.
So two questions about that. One is, how practical is a generalist in your world? So for example, if you want more people who are servicing customers, then you do need someone who, maybe has some familiarity.
Oh, for sure. I mean, of course, we have like a world-class team of accountants, but even in that context, I'm not looking for the typical run-of-the-mill person who's at like PwC or KPMG or EY. Like, I'm looking for divas, people who are not satisfied with like the status quo at where they're working.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like I've watched the talk where he talks about this. He at the same time is saying how annoying they can be and how many resources they attract. So he's still justifying it. So I think he goes on to say something like, you still need these people in an organization. You need to find your way to protect them and hire them, and they're the ones who are going to make an impact, right? He might even mention Elon in that talk. I don't know. It seems to me his theory is like, you can't hire too many of them, or at least it feels like he's implying that. Do you disagree? Is your theory actually, I only want people like that and they can collide against each other and fight? Or is it a percentage of the talent force? And so on every team, you want one or two divas and then the rest are the supporting cast?
So I think it's a balance, but I think you want to attract as many divas as you possibly can. Why? Because they're one in a zillion. You can't just like go and find them on the street, and it takes time to find them. And so amassing and collecting them into your team is going to take time. And when you do find them, don't think twice, just hire them.
So it sounds like you think about a lot of things almost like, if I have this asset inside the business, no matter what it means today, I'll figure out a way to use it. 100%. I feel like that's a theme in a lot of the underlying. Yeah. Interesting. So how do you reward a diva, though, if they're not rewarding you tomorrow with all of the, these people might be future entrepreneurs, or they might want to become a founder, or they might want to switch roles. They might ask you for pay raise, right? There's all sorts of annoying things about them. How do you hold them?
Yeah, it's basically some level of being more of a diva than they are. And so they kind of like gravitate towards you. When you have a group of them, they begin to mesh, because most people in the world aren't divas, and those people don't always know how to resonate with other people who aren't like that. So once you're able to bring those types of people together, I do think there's some level of gluiness that begins to amass. And it's the creation of serendipity.
So the company of misfits, the PayPal mafia,
100%.
Well, turns out it can take over governments. Whether it's good or not, we'll see.
Yeah.
Questions from the crowd? Good.
So you talk about bootstrapping in the beginning, and I really agree with that, especially when you have a proof of concept and being able to like come to an investor with an actual company instead of an idea of a company. So with that, I'm curious about your perspective on, future fundraising rounds, and you talk in these terms of like this venture scale domination. And so if that's your intention, do you believe you can do that without raising significant more capital? Or and in relation to that, how do you see, you're currently profitable, as you said, how do you see yourself balancing that as the years go on? And are you willing to, go over to unprofitability and, as Sherveen says, suck at the nectar of VC funds in order to scale? Or what's your perspective on growing over the next 5+ years?
Yeah, so I'm in this camp as well. If you don't want to take 50 years to build a massive company like Michael Bloomberg, you have to raise some amount of money. So the answer is yes, we will raise more money, but within the confines of we raised $1 million, we could have raised 100. People think that they need a ton of money to go and build like a great company. You don't need that. What you need is exceptional execution, exceptional talent density. And yes, money helps foster those, but it's not like a one-to-one correlation, right? Like you're not going to go and find and hire the best person on the planet because you got a ton of money in the bank. Sure, it'll help you, but the best people on the planet, they're not looking to just like make a ton of cash. They're looking to make a massive impact on the world. And so aligning people around vision rather than capital is 10x more important. And what comes with that, though, is being generous with equity. But the way we run the business, while we are profitable, we will lose money every year on purpose. Yeah. Why? Because we reinvest everything.
Yeah. So operating profits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not net income.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Dev. This is great. I have a question. So as a startup founder, a lot of these payroll accounting companies keep reaching out to try the services. There's like Bench, QuickBooks, Ledgerify. So what's one thing that I should think about before signing up for a service? Yeah.
You're not allowed to say by Haven.
Yeah. It's really going to come down to like, who do you trust most to get done what you need done? When you're working with someone in the financial services world, all that matters is trust. Hands down. The fancy product, the fancy dashboard, none of it matters. Think about when you have a problem, because there's always problems, right? No matter who you're working with, there's always bugs. Who's going to fix the bug the fastest? Who's going to answer your questions the fastest? Who's going to be there for you when you need them? Everything else is just commoditized, right? Like Rippling, Gusto, JustWorks, they all do the same thing, right? In like the payroll world. But who's going to be there for you like when you need them?
The best way to test this is to be really annoying as a prospect and see what vendor actually puts up with it and like calls you back. And yeah, I've literally told SDRs who call me and are trying to sell me something that I kind of want, but I don't want to reveal it. So I go like, call me at 9. You're going to call me at 9 p.m. Like if you're going to do that, and maybe your org will also like fix my problems at 9 p.m. or they'll have like some sort of timer. So that's my tip to early stage founders is be a really annoying customer in the buying process. And that'll be a good test as to whether you want to trust that vendor with your business.
You keep talking about exceptional customer service, and you were also talking about how other vendors are maybe leaning towards AI or newer models. One question is, how do you balance the customer's want for new technology and also kind of counterbalance like ease of adoption and understanding how to use it? And then the second part of that question is, if you're targeting smaller businesses that maybe use managed services or CPAs, or to kind of also strategize how to move forward in the future, how do you do that as a software platform where you're able to provide that level of customer experience?
So your question's like,
I'll reshape the question a little bit. So I think his answer, I'm going to answer it for him, then I'm going to like expand on it for you, and you tell me if this doesn't satisfy. He doesn't do that. He just provides that software to his team, who then provides it to the customer. So he gets to abstract this away. So Haven is not first and foremost a software platform. It's first and foremost a tech-enabled CPA. And so the customer doesn't have to, a customer who wants a better tech experience goes and buys something else if they want to self-serve. Now, I think the challenge with that, and let me know if this expansion gives you some insight on your question, is, some of these customers probably want to be more involved versus others, or they might be more complicated versus others. The way in which you might have to get integrated might be more complicated. How do you think about how much you want to be Slack bots versus a person? How much you abstract away from the customer? I think, again, we're tech-enabled as well, so I feel like my brain is maybe moving a little faster here. So, I often think about, what do I hide from the person, right? So like, what do I show them the technology is doing? What do I show them the team is even doing, even if it's manual? Like, do I show you the work? Yeah. Or do I hide it from you and just give you the results? And obviously some of that depends on what they need to see in the accounting world. But how do you make that choice of abstractifying versus collaborating maybe?
So there's a few different ways to answer the question. And there's an analogy that I like to use. Once I can call Walgreens and the bot that picks up the phone can get what I need done, then having AI or a bot in the loop, fostering and building and managing the customer relationship will make a lot of sense. But until then, the way AI should be used, in my opinion, is to enhance a person's ability to support many clients at scale. Our approach internally is like, how do we build a robot to help our team push buttons faster? Or how do we build a chip to put into our team's brain to help a customer faster? How do we build software around our team to provide a better client experience at scale? I think that over time, can be automated to some degree, but the experience of going from an agent to a person needs to be frictionless. And you need to be able to have either option, at least in the interim, right? I think you need to be in tune with the state of the world. And I think people today, while AI is great and all, you don't want to be talking to a bot. You want to be talking to a human.
There's a notion we use for agency, which is the notion of received value versus perceived value. And so I think that's a lot of also what tech-enabled businesses think about is like, is it worth it to, and that's some of what he was just talking about, is like, is it worth it to get automation or product or AI involved? And in a lot of cases, it actually decreases the perceived reward of that customer versus continuing to enable your team. So there are many choices we've made where I'm like, look, if my customer was intellectual, I would serve them with the more raw product, but they're not. And so them receiving the value is often me deciding to turn it into an experience, a moment, if we go back to the Disney analogy, of delight, even though it might actually be more efficient to do it another way.
Yeah. I mean, our ICP, you touched on something, is like, how do we decide like which customers to work with or not like work with or whatnot? Like, our ICP is digitally native businesses, but similar to Ramp, who will turn away like crypto companies for one reason or another. Like, we work with crypto companies, like no issue whatsoever. There are certain companies we will turn away that just like don't make sense for us to like work with because of, I don't know, let's say they've got like 15 entities and there's some like complex corporate structure between all of them. And they really at that point need like a full-time internal like accounting team who can like live and breathe all of this. And the automation and technology that we've built to help automate some of the work that our team would otherwise have to do becomes irrelevant.
Right.
Yeah.
Efficacy of the product has to
totally be
worth it.
But those are like, I don't know, one in like 100, like, I don't know, like call it 15,000, 20,000.
Yeah. We think of it a similar way.
Yeah.
Final question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You've been in a lot of businesses, again, serving these founders in this early stage moment around their dollars.
Mm-hmm.
What's something small, tactical, that you would recommend an early stage founder do differently when it comes to early stage accounting, finances, their dollar management, that you've seen over time, that you think people should think more about, be more conscious of?
There's a bunch of little things. I think that first and foremost, it's when you raise a bunch of money, take advantage of the interest, especially with interest rates like where they're at today.
I regret not doing that early on. Yeah.
Right. It's tens of thousands of dollars, especially if you have like millions in the bank. And that could be like, I don't know, marketing budget. That could be an event. That could be a ton of different things. So those little things actually add up over time. So that's one really big one. And then the other thing is like, just be frugal. Like really, really be frugal. I think as we've exited the like ZIRP era, the zero interest rate era of like fundraising and whatnot, not to say like fundraising has gotten harder or whatever, it probably has, but I think learning how to do more with less, like I mentioned early on, is like so important. And I think it's really, really a core reason why we're the business we are today.
Cyrus, thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.